Baton Rouge police say there were 13 domestic violence homicides in 2023 and already 3 as of April 2024. For the officers and prosecutors working these cases, legal remedies like protective orders and ankle monitoring don't always keep victims safe. And with few tools to prevent domestic violence from turning into murder, they're left fighting an uphill battle.
Right.
In Baton Rouge, this SUV is the scene of a domestic violence homicide involving women. In St. Francisville, a woman killed by her estranged husband who was wearing a court-ordered ankle monitor.
The ankle monitor company did absolutely nothing.
For law enforcement, protecting victims and investigating these cases can be daunting and unforgettable.
Do you remember the first time you encountered a domestic violence case or a domestic violence victim?
Very vividly.
Why? Why did that stick with you?
Because of the violence, his propensity of really want to kill her and kill us as well.
Baton Rouge Police Captain Dave Mays says domestic violence starts with subtle signs.
Grab them or push them or even start restraining them from talking to family members or different things of that nature, and they think it's cute. But it starts early and the warning signs are there, the red flags are there.
Seeing so many of these cases, Victim Assistance Coordinator Detective Beulah Bowman says the issue affects everyone.
It's one of those things we think most of the time female, but it really isn't. Domestic, it doesn't discriminate. You see male, you see female, you see teens, you see elderly, you see rich, you see middle class.
In 2023, BRPD reportedly made 932 domestic violence arrests, and the violence continues into 2024. In March, police arresting Danielle Bell for killing her girlfriend, 27-year-old Brittany Williams.
In detectives, I've seen one where it initially started out as the female being the victim because it was a repeat offender. And we do our job best as we can. Went through, made an arrest with him, but later he got out and then she victimized him.
There are safeguards like protective orders or ankle monitors, but that does not guarantee that offenders will follow the rules.
After their house in the middle of the night, hey, I just wanted to...
Keeping victims safe from their abuser is a top concern for West Feliciana District Attorney Sam DeQuilla.
These people that are on ankle monitors are very, very dangerous individuals, and they're strapping something to their leg, and they don't know where they are, and they don't know what they're doing, and I really have great concern about that.
In September 2021, 70-year-old Peggy Rayburn was killed by her estranged husband, 63-year-old Marshall Rayburn, who wrapped his court-ordered ankle monitor in aluminum foil to avoid detection. The monitoring company failed to notify anyone. In 2022, a West Feliciana Parish grand jury indicted 2 ankle monitoring companies for negligent homicide.
So we feel like the monitoring company had a duty or a standard of care they had to operate under to notify somebody, the victim, the sheriff, the court, if there's a violation in the monitoring agreement.
Although state lawmakers have bills to address it, ankle monitoring companies are poorly regulated and are not reporting if perpetrators are in unauthorized areas.
And that's really amazing to me, because if you have a guard that's sitting at a guard tower at Dixon Correctional Institute or at Angola, and you have an inmate, a dangerous person like these people that have ankle monitors are, and somebody tries to escape and they do nothing and they sleep on their job, they can be put in jail for malfeasance in office. That's a criminal offense.
But both prosecutors and officers agree that awareness is key, which includes spotting the subtle red flags before it escalates.
But I also try to inform them the importance of following through with the process, especially if it's a second time or that if it's occurred multiple times. Yeah, what we're trying to avoid or prevent is death, because it could lead to that.
Ignoring red flags, protecting the children, or feeling helpless and alone are just some of the reasons why someone might stay in an abusive relationship. That was the situation for Sandra Haley, whose abuse story made headlines.
I'd seen it on the movie, but I never thought I would have, been in something like this. But I thank God I survived, so I can tell the story
Sandra Halley lived with her abuser for nearly 15 years.
We couldn't eat, you know what I'm saying, eat what he said to eat.
And while not all of those years were bad,
It ain't like you could just lay down up in there. I said, fix food. You know.
by the time it ended,
He'll drop us off like me and my son with a cooler and cut his lots and stuff.
she would be left with lifelong physical and mental scars.
I say, thank God.
It made news when he was arrested for his crimes in 2019.
It was like a cult.
Moses Evans, a justice of the peace, charged with several counts of domestic abuse battery and cruelty to juveniles.
But it's the reason why I made it out.
But years before her pain became headlines, Sandra was in a happy relationship.
Like I say, he was Prince Charming, you know, did everything and, you know, so nice and everything. I say, well, it seemed like this is a good guy, you know.
The first few years of their relationship weren't physically violent. However, looking back, Sandra realizes she was being controlled in other ways.
Like a brainwashing. It was like, I like to say, grooming somebody, you know, in their only special way.
Evans began to control every aspect of her life, from what she ate, who she spoke to, and what she wore.
I make a joke, you know, I started looking like Likuta Kente. My hair was cut off like a little boy, wore glasses, had spots in my face, you know. Nothing, anybody who knew me before would be like, what is wrong with her? They'll, you know, they'll look like something wrong with me for sure, you know.
The once vibrant, extroverted hairdresser shriveled. In 2012, WBRZ interviewed the family about storm damage in their neighborhood. You can see Sandra here. She was eventually let go from the salon where she worked.
They could see the change, you know, I wouldn't talk to my customers.
Over the course of the next few years, Evans became increasingly violent.
I didn't know at the time that my nose had got fractured. I had both my arms fractured. Got these crooked fingers that's not gonna go straight. Cauliflower ear, cuts on my lip, cut on the eyebrow. I burn on my arm, right here. I have teeth, my little teeth.
Her kids were also victims, sometimes ordered by Evans to hurt their mother, and other times recipients of his anger themselves.
My children, I feel like I tell them that something had to be wrong with me for let all that go down.
Sandra says she tried to leave many times.
It seemed like within the last year, I ran away. Ran away, and I ended up coming back because my children was there.
The last straw came during one of those attempts.
They don't do nothing in front of nobody.
She says Evans tried to stop her
He body slammed me.
and pinned her down on a scalding hot metal trailer.
I am burning. I was on my back. I said, I'm burning. He gonna say, B, you gonna burn more in hell than on this trailer. And he was boom, boom. He was punching me, and I'm blocking.
That was it.
Now, it was hard to sell out there.
Sandra began to formulate a plan to leave, receiving help from Evans's own mother. She found herself in the hospital receiving treatment for years of injuries.
He'll put you outside, too.
Eventually, when Evans was arrested, she was able to get her kids out as well.
It starts here.
She says she was able to get back on her feet with the help of Iris Domestic Violence Center.
They set me up with everything, with the lawyers, you know, everything for to get the restraining order and everything. They still help me now.
A resource she urges others to use.
There are people that is out there that can help you. You know, I know, I understand. It's not like you out there by yourself, you know, nobody understand you or they don't want to get involved. Or we got some people that want to get involved.
Our City, Our Problem. Domestic violence. We'll be right back. Now, we return to Our City, Our Problem with Bess Casserly and Brandy B. Harris.
According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men experience violence at the hands of an intimate partner. In 2023, 38 people were killed by former or current intimate partners in the state of Louisiana. Now, most families of those victims don't have any legal means for recourse, but one family in the Lafayette area found their own form of justice.
Planning, stalking, and waiting in the darkest hour of night. What was taken from siblings Drake and Mallory Vincent on this night has no price tag.
We're all we really had growing up.
Holidays and vacations, from childhood to adulthood, a mother's love is infinite.
Honestly, she was like a mama bear. She would do anything for us.
Catherine had a lot of love to give, finding romance once again, even after divorce. In 2012, Catherine Mashburn married Eric Babineau.
We taken upon ourselves to call her Mashburn because when you do something like this, for a woman to take a man's name is more of a privilege. So when you do something like that, you're not really awarded that privilege.
Drake says Babineau lost that privilege on April 17th, 2023. When Drake got a call that Catherine had not shown for work, he quickly went to her house.
So I started calling out for my mom because I thought she was hiding somewhere to see where she was. And then that's where I just found her like that.
Just 3 months earlier, Catherine had filed for divorce, and Eric moved to New Orleans. But before their divorce could be finalized, 53-year-old Babineau rented a car, driving to Catherine's home in Broussard. In the dark of night, he laid low on the property for hours before shooting Catherine multiple times and killing himself.
The emotions are coming out. What are you feeling right now?
I'm more comfortable talking about the statistics. The matter of fact, it's hard to talk about. How I feel about her, because that is my loss. So I can talk about anything else, but.
So this case involved a murder-suicide. It was a premeditated act.
Because criminal prosecution was not an option,
What it does is give people an avenue.
attorney Andrew Quackenboss says the family had to find justice in a different way.
You're in a situation where the criminal justice system was not an option. They didn't have the recourse of prosecution, of seeing someone have to face the music, so to speak, for committing this bad act. So we were able to use this law that exists to send that message, or to at least give them some type of feeling that it's not just compensation, but we've got justice in a different kind of way.
In court, Quackenboss cited a 2014 law that makes abusers liable for damages caused by domestic abuse, even if the abuser was not criminally prosecuted. In February 2024, 15th JDC Judge Royale Colbert awarded Catherine's estate $216 million in damages. Quackenboss coined it financial death penalty.
Right, so he can't go and commit this crime, kill himself, and then people who are there get to benefit from it. Instead, the court said, we're going to send a message that says, no, 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 no. Nobody's going to benefit in your line, so to speak, from these types of actions, and instead we're going to set an example to let everybody know in the community that this type of conduct's not going to be tolerated.
Despite the large settlement, the Vincents say what they've lost cannot be replaced.
If we could get her mom back, we could have gotten $1 trillion. It doesn't matter. Like, we would have traded anything for our mom. So the number was just the message.
Could this have been prevented? I mean, it seems, how could it have been prevented is my question.
To be honest, I don't think that it could have been prevented in this case.
With the settlement behind them, Drake and Mallory say their grief continues.
If you could give a message to your mom, what would you say?
I'll just say, like, from a mom, at least your death wasn't for nothing. we're able to get people to actually start talking about this issue.
It shouldn't have to get to that point. It shouldn't have to get to a death or such an extreme measure. Like, you need to get help before, and I think everybody needs to just reevaluate their situations and think twice about it and look at themselves to see if they are in a type of relationship that needs help.
Despite progressive outcomes like that in the Vincent's case, domestic violence shelters and programs remain widely unfunded. And now they're facing the potential of even more cutbacks. Louisiana's 17 shelters rely heavily on private donations and federal dollars, which many feel is at risk under new legislation. House Bill 608 by State Representative Roger Wilder creates the Women's Safety and Protection Act and would require bathrooms and changing rooms in public facilities to be designated by male and female.
This bill's goal is to put women first by affording them confidence in their privacy and safety in their female-only use areas.
But the language of the bill could have some major unintended consequences, according to the Louisiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence Director Mariah Wineski.
So there are federal regulations that require that domestic violence shelters serve victims of domestic violence in accordance with their gender identity. And the bill specifically requires that spaces be established and designated based on its definition of biological sex. So we're concerned about that, that distinction and the ability of the shelters to maintain compliance with their federal regulations.
Domestic violence shelters are included in the bill, and despite lengthy testimony from advocates,
this is almost essentially going to put domestic violence shelters out of business in Louisiana.
Legislators have refused to remove them, putting vital federal funding at risk. Attorney General Liz Murrill has said she would sue the United States government if that money was pulled, but Wineski says it's too risky.
The shelters across the state, their funding situation is so precarious that they are not in a position to play chicken with the federal government over their money.
The millions of dollars of federal funding wouldn't be as crucial if the state put any money at all towards shelters.
Historically, Louisiana has not provided any state general funding for domestic violence shelters.
In 2021, a legislative auditor found that domestic violence programs in the state were severely underfunded.
What the legislative auditor actually found in their report was that an average of more than 2,500 requests per year for shelter went unmet.
That changed last year when Governor John Bel Edwards included $7 million in the budget for domestic violence programs.
With the $7 million that we did receive last year, we were able to open 5 new domestic violence shelters across the state. 6 other domestic violence shelters that already existed were able to expand their capacity. It has also led to the opening of 11 new outreach offices. So outreach offices are the non-residential places where domestic violence survivors can go and receive counseling, safety planning, help with a restraining order.
But that money was cut for this year.
And those services are what is at risk. So all of that just got off the ground would have to shut down.
For Wineski, losing that state funding and being at risk of having vital federal funds pulled is a slap in the face for domestic violence survivors and the programs that help them.
It certainly feels like it is not a priority for our state.
Our city, our problem. Domestic violence. We'll be right back. Now, we return to Our City, Our Problem with Bess Casserly and Brandy B. Harris.
The lack of funding has deep impacts on actual shelters and programs. But luckily, the network of resources available is vast, often coming together to help victims in any way they can.
We're almost 50,000 square feet.
At the Irish Shelter in Baton Rouge, Director Patty Freeman was able to build a new wing for transitional housing and begin work on a children's center.
We provide free legal services.
That state money was cut this year.
A home environment.
And the future of those projects is uncertain.
That looks like a locked door on a transitional wing. That looks like potentially a locked door on a children's program that we just developed and are about to finish. We provide formula, we provide the bottles needed, the diapers needed, the wipes.
While Freeman says they're usually able to scrape by on donations,
All new and all funded through.
they can't fund certain things.
I had to prepare my staff when that money was taken because it funded specific positions that weren't in place before. That, unfortunately, there may be cuts in staffing, there may be layoffs if this money isn't continued.
Iris is one of 17 shelters statewide. It services 8 parishes.
That alone, there are over 850,000 persons. So if you consider those numbers where 1 in 5 women are a victim, that number is enormous, and this shelter alone serves that number.
Freeman says recently it's been steadily full.
Right now, it's all but 2 rooms full. And it's been 1 to 2 rooms from full for the last several months.
But due to the dangerous nature of their work, Freeman says they will never turn someone away.
Could you imagine the horror if we said, no, we're full, and so they don't go anywhere else, and then something horrific happens to them?
While the future of DV shelters in the state depends on legislators, other advocacy groups are stepping up.
Love is kind, love is respect, love is not abused.
Like the Butterfly Society.
Everybody plays a part in this. We cannot do this work alone. And I put it this way, everyone has a piece of the puzzle. And we know when it's time to bring those pieces together to make it happen for a victim, a survivor, for a family.
Juana Harris is a domestic violence survivor herself.
Every time I left, he said he was sorry.
She started the Butterfly Society to help people in similar situations.
Domestic violence, it doesn't wear a certain mask. It doesn't come from a certain side of town. It could happen to anyone at any given moment.
Often when Iris is stretched thin,
there's something you can do.
They'll reach out to her.
We pull our dollars together sometimes, we put our minds together sometimes, and we make it happen. We make it happen.
The program, which relies on funding from donors and a grant from Southern University, provides essentially whatever someone may need to leave their situation.
From temporary lodging, rental assistance, utility assistance, the necessities that someone would need leaving home. We even assist with funeral expense as well, medical expense. We've paid car notes, we've bought plane tickets, bus passes.
That's when you really see who people are.
Like Sandra Halley, Twana knows just how hard it is to ask for help.
I never called police.
And that's the hardest thing to have to do sometimes is call a shelter or call the Butterfly Society or contact Iris Domestic Violence Center or Family Services of Greater Baton Rouge. Because the moment you make that call, you're acknowledging there's something wrong there. And what's the next step?
The Butterfly Society tries to make that next step as easy as possible.
We're in the trenches. We love meeting people where they are because where they are is where they're hurting. And you can find us anywhere. You can find us in a barbershop, a hair salon, at a neighborhood church, or even in someone's school.
As we said at the top of this broadcast, chances are you know someone who is or was a victim of domestic violence. And it's not only women.
20% of men in Louisiana experience some form of abuse from an intimate partner, and children get caught in the cycle either directly or indirectly, but help is available. We've posted links on our website to help better understand domestic violence, the warning signs and red flags, as well as resources for getting help. Thank you for joining us.
If you or someone you know is a victim of domestic violence, help is available right now. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233.